Roy was, a lot of things, but most importantly, he was a source of encouragement for me. Sometimes when I felt like I wasn't writing very well, or I was having a hard time, coming up with topics that would not only interest readers but would interest me, he was always ready with either a suggestion or just some encouragement. And it was a great day to get a note from Roy McHugh on something I'd written. But he was many things beyond that, but that was kind of the most important thing to me.
Roy was the star of the Pittsburgh Press. He was maybe a star in the country. He was a very fine columnist, sports columnist, arguably the best sports columnist in the country, in my opinion. Roy, first of all, was a friend, but he also was, without trying to be a mentor, I was a 20-year-old new reporter at the Pittsburgh Press, where Roy was the star, and I was also the first African-American, first black person hired in that company who wasn't a janitor or wasn't a copy aide. But Roy took an interest in me as a person.
I admired how gracious and kind he was to everyone who came into contact with him.
He was a fine writer and a good journalist, a good reporter with a conscience. And at the time, America, including Pittsburgh, were going through some of the most sweeping events that this country saw in the 20th century. The civil rights movement, the women's movement, the anti-Vietnam movement, and he understood that sports was a part of that same world, and he had a magnificent touch and brought all those things together with his social consciousness.
I ran into a lot of people who would come through town and want to talk to him, and many times I would take them up to his apartment on Grandview Avenue in Mount Washington. And unfailingly, he was so receptive and helpful to them. But he was just a guy kind of in the mold of a Fred Rogers, just someone who's just very kind and gracious to everyone. Roy
Valued people, and my favorite memory of Roy was him telling me about being in the Army, and how he told me about a person he knew in the Army who couldn't read, but and Roy was very well-read, and this person, however, could take apart and reassemble his rifle better than Roy ever could. And he understood that everybody had value. He understood the value of that person, and I think he understood people in general. And as I said, I like to think that he saw value in me in that same way. When
we got together for his 100th birthday, he didn't want to say anything, but he finally stood up and said, I don't want any of you to consider this a milestone. It's just something that happened, and I think we all know what the next milestone will be.
The best story I have is just the memory of what a quality person he was. Right up until the last time I saw him just a few years ago here at Duquesne on Media Day.
Even when he was almost 100, we would go to lunch on Mount Washington, and even at age 100, he would walk me to Redbeard's bar and hold the door open for me And then he would walk to the back room and order a salad and get the dressing on the side. And I would say to him, Roy, put that dressing on the salad. You're 100 years old. You've won.
He was a quality person who was interested in people and valued people. So that's you know, those are my best memories of him.